Hi, everybody. Well, we made it to the critique class, and been looking forward to this. It's always fun to be able to go over your art that maybe you were able to submit before, or maybe not. Maybe even put in some things that you haven't had a chance to show anybody you've been working on by yourself. I always have hope that I can help you so that you can, get a head start on either finishing it or just learn something that we can all benefit from. That's why I don't mind sharing some of the same things over and over and over again, because everybody can identify, I think, for the most part, when you're trying to adjust and learn this 5-pencil method and some of the other things that will help you just become more confident. And that's the main thing, is being able to do that. Tonight, I think I'm going to try and do everything that was sent in, almost. And a couple things came at the very last, and so we may not include those, but I want to be able to get as much in as I possibly can. And so some of the recommendations or some of the things that I'm going to show you may seem short. It's also an opportunity for me to show you some of the common problems along the line that many of you may be running into. So I think it'll all still be very beneficial. So tonight, here it is underneath. I was looking for the picture. And I'm going to go ahead and start out with Debbie D, and see if we can't, help this not look like it's so maybe wet hair, or I like the randomness of this, and often, the printer isn't going to capture exactly what you may have sent in. So again, it's always a challenge. Just take it with a grain of salt, and I can help you with as many things as I possibly can. So I'm going to move a couple things. I have a lot of notes here too, so I can help remember. She said, "Hi, Daryl and everyone. I'm so sad I haven't been able to work on our boy in close for 2 weeks with these migraines." Oh, I'm so sorry about the migraines too. That's too bad. I don't have them, so I don't want to act like I'm indifferent. But boy, I can only imagine what it's like. He's been such a joy to draw, just as you're such a joy and delight to learn from. Well, thank you very much. That's very kind of you. Thanks ever so much for all our 5 p.m. team that they do for us. And that's sincerely Debbie. And she's hoping that she uploaded the right picture. So I hope that as you see this, that you can tell whether that was the right picture. A little bit late now to do much else about it, but we can still learn from it, so don't fret too much. Okay, I'm going across and trying to find a reference I think that might be illustrative of what is going on here. And I think one of the things that I like about this boy is it's almost random tossed hair. It's probably natural that he has some part and fold and whatever, as we all do. But for the most part, I don't want to construct that too much. So I think you're really close on what you're trying to accomplish. And also, I don't know how dark this actually is. It could be darker, but let's go ahead and just see what we can do with pushing some things back. Let's just see. Just to break it up. Let's see. Oh, I've got that extreme. I'm going to have to get up out of my chair. Can one of you guys turn my overhead light off? In the room here. It's easy to just have too much light, and if it's directly overhead, and let me tell you, I think I did some explanation on YouTube here in the past few days that Ben or somebody, come on in and turn my light off in the room here. My overhead light. Yeah. Anyway, they didn't understand what I was talking about, so they're in a completely different part of the building. So anyway, when you're drawing, and you may not have everything that you may want and are going to try to get someday, but when you are sitting in a room without any actual light on an arm, yeah, that's a lot better. Thank you very much. You want to try and position yourself at a table or wherever you are so that that light is to the left of a right-handed person. You'll see how it's fairly light in here, but it's dark on the other side. And so if I had my light coming in from this way, I'd be casting a shadow on my work. And I want to be able to know exactly, precisely, as much as possible anyway, where I'm putting my pencil tip. And I want to be able to see clearly what I'm drawing. So you can still, if you have to turn around in a room so that the light in the ceiling is, one direction or another, then you want to take that into consideration. If I'm left-handed, I want to be able to go ahead and shine it into my left hand. The same principle, just in reverse. And you can see that there's no shadow being cast on the back side of my hand, and there's no shadow being cast on the open part of my hand as a right-handed person. So just keep that in mind. It will just take, it'll give you a little bit more comfort, peace of mind. It's almost the same thing as turning your drawing around, and if you're not good at curls and whatever, try to find that place that gives that curl your natural stroke. You'll feel it. You'll be able to know, well, I am better at making my circles and things from this direction than another. And so this is quite a bit straighter than what I thought it was, because I couldn't even see it. When I went to put my darker pencil on there, it becomes so shiny that you can't actually really appreciate the angle. And so then you have things like this that are going to come down and maybe change the hairline. And you don't want to just have the curls necessarily. You want to have a few places where you're showing that the hair is actually going right into, and we have a scalp, and going right into the forehead. But in doing that, I want to make sure that my distance is right here. So you can see that there's an actual angle to this as we're looking at this drawing. And so you want to pay attention to that, because otherwise you end up with something, especially if you don't have the shadows and the hair coming out of the scalp and things like that, you'll have something that looks quite a bit different. And then you're dependent on how much light and dark there is around here. And it does end up by creating maybe a forehead that isn't quite as accurate as it could be. So I think this goes up because this is around and out of our sight. Then we have a clean edge, but only for a little bit. I see some of these hairs coming in, going down, but I want to try and do it in such a way that I see that this ended and this is covering it up, instead of this being the forehead, the edge of the forehead, which is so easy to have happen. So I want to be able to do that, be able to push it back with a clean edge, but I wouldn't do that over here, because we see the hair coming out of the temples, as any of us would if we're turned that direction. And so this is really important, because not only is it capturing the boy as he is, but in reality, but we are showing the perspective. We're showing depth and all the things that aren't becoming a contradiction to what we're trying to achieve. Now, we see this. Look at the difference. Remember, I have this two pencil idea. So this is pretty straight up and down. That sideburn, at least a portion of it, but this one is off to an angle. Well, look at the difference, how much of a lobe there is showing here, but not here, and how it relates to the neck, and all those things is quite different. We have a completely different shape in here than we do on this one. And so we want to take those things into consideration, and there's probably a lot of angles that can be shifted. And so it's coming down. Now it's starting to narrow up the face. And then we'd look at this, and again, the same thing, the angles. And then we have the opportunity to put this into the shirt. And it's probably a little bit of a guessing game, but because we don't know exactly, we just don't want this to look like it's round and just, almost a round curve sitting on his shoulders. We want to be able to have some forgiveness. And so I'm giving myself that by putting some dark in there. And I want to be able to make sure that some of these things are angled in the right way to maintain my proportion. So this right here, that is not quite so arced, and by taking that arc off, that curve off, I'm able to go ahead and change again the trajectory and the proportion and all those things. So it looks like maybe this goes up a little higher. We don't necessarily have to have all the hair, but what we do have, we can have larger contrast unless we want to put in a hair that we know would be a highlight. And then it's that curve. You want to be able to have not just a straight line, but find out where the apex of that curve is. That's the part that catches the light and reflects it back at you as much as possible. And if it varies, as I hope this is, I'm just trying to quickly give you an idea. As it varies, I want to have a part that's brighter, and or if it's too bright, to back it off, because that helps us have curve. It helps us create those circle locks of hair, but it doesn't become, it helps break it up and it doesn't become just flat. So when we have this over here, we're actually coming down out of that and creating, that continuation. And because our minds are going to be able to say, oh, wow, okay, now I get it. As it comes up into the light, we have a reflection. The other part is silhouetted against the forehead. Okay? So these are some of the opportunities you have to create some of those things. And I know that the hair is really a challenge, and it's hard when you're watching me do it. I'm not doing everything just totally accurate because there's not enough time, and I want to make sure that I can take you through as much as I possibly can, so that you can see as much as you can grasp during these projects. So, but if you can isolate something that kind of is an anchor point, then you can see how other things relate to it. And this is going to help you maintain the proportion, the design, the composition, all those different things, and know where to put some of those darker places in. This probably comes out like so. And so I have a place where it's getting darker. And that's really important because it helps us see depth. And then when something comes out and it catches a little light, it helps us be able to increase that depth and that dimension, be able to look through something and past. And that's something you always want to be able to do, is to be able to go past, pulling something forward, pushing it back. So some of these things, Debbie, might help you as you want to be able to create this as accurate as you can, and then look at your values. The values here are quite dark. We want to be able to have, and it might be the print, and excuse me, but it still gives me a chance to illustrate it to you. And so we want to be able to lighten up some of these values a little bit so we can create the shape that the opening of the mouth has. And there's some angles in there. I hate to put this stuff on because look at the contrast now. It even makes it even more. But this isn't as dark down here. So you want to be careful that you're not putting a false value because you see an edge or you see it increasing in value. Make sure you're trying to think about the contour and curve. Look at how this comes down here, and maybe a little bit more of a lighter value here. We don't want it to be too dark on the lip. It'd have too much contrast and become almost an odd shape for the lip. So I'm just showing you real quick. Just come in there and pay attention. Does that dark value right there misrepresent it? I need to have dark here. Maybe we ought to go ahead and back that off just a little bit. So then we don't have an odd shaped mouth. And I'm not saying that what you've done is wrong. I'm just trying to tell you when you're going through, these are some of the reasonings that I want you to see and have an opportunity to understand. And some of these values won't be exactly perfect, but we don't want to necessarily misrepresent. Well, we don't want to misrepresent the Yeah. Okay, so you can see I want to push that back. This helps me be able to separate the ear and push it back. I don't want it just on his cheek or acting like it's coming off of there. Okay, so anyway, that's just a few things. I don't want to overwhelm you with all kinds of things about the drawing that you could have changed or whatever. But those are some things, and I think it really looks dynamic. It's just really well done, increasing value where it maybe goes around to the dark side, and just a few things. Make sure you can take it off if you put it on as much as possible, so you can make adjustments, those fine adjustments in value. Okay, Debbie, thank you very much for that. And Cynthia has one here that I'm going to do all these boys first that we've been working on. I think there's about 6 of them, if I'm not mistaken. And Cynthia says, "Hi, Daryl. Thank you so much. Learned, I guess I'm looking at it from a distance. I've learned so much from you and this young boy. I feel I am not getting the values balanced enough and not enough contrast. It seems flat to me. It would be I would so appreciate it if you could show me where I am going wrong." And so it really depends on what is able to be included in here, because I still may be misrepresenting something. And so some of these things, I think there is too much contrast probably in the hair. There's not large, white areas. Let me get this out here. And so that's part of what you may not have had the opportunity to work through and continue toning down and balancing your values, because these become almost like, curls from a plane when you're in a wood shop. When you're just shoving that plane along there and it just has a nice curl to it. But we want this to be hair. So it's an important thing to decide where is it needing to be darker. I'm just going to take the liberty, even if they're wrong, where we can push back into an area and show some variance, but show that maybe there's a few places that are darker. So it starts marrying the environment a little bit, becomes compatible with it, and helps us to be able to have some of that balance and yet contrast that we need. And so up in here, I wouldn't go that dark, and I would use my brush to tone it down. Remember how I've told you, you can go ahead and put your value in there. And then take advantage of that extra lead that you have on there now and tone down something else so that you can actually utilize it by removing something from that brushed in area and create that highlight that may be so effective. So you want to also be careful and pay attention to the size and shape of the hair. So don't forget your divider. This is, it's hard. Some people don't understand. It's a straight edge and divider method, but it's the divider after you get so far that you have something you can compare. So I want to come out here and I want to say, okay, where is that equal or, similar measurement? Let's just see if that'll do it. Okay, so we want to come up, where were we? I want to come up here, and I want to be able to come here. Where was I? I think that's the one I used. Let's go see. No, we shouldn't be guessing here. Okay, so yeah, that's it. So I'll get a width, and again, not everything has to be exactly, but it's nice to be able to get it quite close, because this is one of the first things that I thought when I saw this, that there should be a little more height and dimension to these curls. And then, not that they have to be haphazard or just chaotic, but you want to be able to have an opportunity to look through. So there's some hair that you will group just like you have here, but you want to be able to kind of peek through some of it. and that's going to help you have some dimension. So on this, you can see that this big curl out here, this one, it might be right if you had it up a little farther. And I think this would be very nice to be able to get it up a little bit higher. And then equal this out like this right here. We could go ahead and take a divider measurement, a comparative measurement, in all kinds of places. But I think this is going to be, fine. Hair is very forgiving. If I haven't had a chance to say that while you're watching the video, hair is very forgiving because your hair is always in a state of flux. Even somebody that's really got a hairstyle that's pretty maintained to a T in a certain shape here and direction there, you still want to be able to have the freedom, because every time we walk outside, every time we move, something's moving in our hair. I don't mean lice. I mean, the way it's going to always be a little different just because we're always in a state of movement. So, all right. So this would all compensate, but you can go from, let's just say, the corner of the eye up to here. Find another equivalent here and have the opportunity, to shape this head just a little bit different that gives it a little bit more height. Not that you don't want to get too much, but this is one of the fun things about this boy, is that he has this wonderful head of hair. And this is very, very general, as you can see. So we don't want to have this be too close, and we don't want to get out too far. So this is an opportunity to find out those places that are nice, happy mediums. And we can come in here and work on a hairline and realize that there's an angle to it. And so I want to put some of this in here. I want to be able to show that something is covering this space, otherwise there's nothing. There's nothing to have growing out of his hairline. And he's not an old man, he's a young boy. So, and so when you get up into these areas where you may not have, and again, maybe you're not finished, that's fine, but give you some hints. So when you have this opportunity, if nothing else, you want to be able to drop down with a value, because he has a curved head and he has curls, and they are ever so slightly shading, his forehead, his scalp. We want his scalp and his forehead to be, not straightforward and prominent. We want it to be part of, and not have to be so vivid and like he doesn't have, his scalp is just bald, but we got something on there anyway. I don't know, probably a poor description. This looks like it's quite a corner here. I think it's a little rounder, just things like that. So we want to be able to go behind things so we have a clean edge and we fade it away. And so maybe you look at this angle, and it might help you to have maybe just a little adjustment. I'm not saying it because it is that way. I'm saying because that's possible. So just watch it. Watch for those things that will help you have dimension. We want a clean edge, and we want a shadow that comes away. Soft as it comes into the light. Sometimes they look pretty, vivid, I guess. It looks like it has a clean edge. But the principle, and that's what I want you to know, is when it goes under here, it's going to be the darkest, where it disappears. That's the principle. Then when it comes into the light, it's going to have a diffused edge. Even though it looks pretty formed, pretty bold, we still want to be able to have the opportunity to really create how light works. How light works is involved in every part of your drawing. So I'm pushing this part back. And again, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time, but look at the shape. Measure this up to here. this is probably needing to be, reduced in size. And then you'll get a proportioned lobe. This isn't going to be so bright because it's being covered partially by the hair. So when we get some of these things balanced out, just part of what I'm talking about when I'm saying balance out your values, making sure that what's behind is probably going to be a little darker. And every time you do this, you have an opportunity to create more depth. But also pay attention to where it's going to be on your drawing so that you don't have a head that gets too wide or too narrow, all based on the fact you said, well. So this looks like it was just a little bit much. Using the side of my pencil, it's not how I want you to draw. But anyway, this is pretty sharp, pretty pointed. So anyway, following those procedures all the way through, you're going to have areas that aren't going to be near as dark. And you can always take something out if you brush that extra value that I'm using to draw those curls. I can go ahead and tone back that harsh contrast, making sure that it really does look natural and not just like there's some white hairs and there's some black hairs and all that stuff. And leave yourself enough detail and variance in there that it isn't just a flat, dark area. You don't want it to just become a black wig. There's no dimension in it. It's very difficult to really show those and have those be looking natural. Okay, I better make sure I'm not taking away my... Okay, this is Sandy, and Sandy says, "Hi, Daryl, and wonderful classmates." I want to make sure you know that. Here's my young boy. I continue to learn more each project and look forward to join you in the critiques and suggestions for improvement. Sandy. And so, Sandy, there are, I think, things that will help you tremendously. First of all, you have the same situation, only maybe you haven't developed it as much, where you want to be able to have an area that is not quite so light and dark together, and push those back so we have something as it goes back into the darker areas and maybe around the back of the head. And be careful not to fill in all the spaces. You can always add something, and you should be able to, for the most part, take a lot off. But some of these places aren't necessary. And here I went over a place that I just put graphite on. Oh well. Okay, so maybe we can change the angle on a few of these things so it isn't just a parted head of hair, a wig, or something like that. And I'm saying those things just to try and illustrate a point. So we don't want to go ahead and say you made this look like a wig. But so many times I could have gone ahead and made it look more natural by just trying to take out some of the solid areas. I want to have some peekaboo through here. I want to be able to see what's behind so that I can have some space. This isn't so solid. They feather at the ends, maybe, a few things like that. And then look at alignments. Your alignments are always something that you can really take advantage of. And I want you to just take a look how that wide flared nostril, actually the wing of the nose, lines up with that. Let's put this one on that one and see if they come up the same. Well, probably not. See, there's a space in between the pencil and the wing of the nose. And so that put that eye farther to the right. You always want to look at also the high point of an arced eyelid or the eye and make sure you're following suit. So the high place is in the same place as your reference. Otherwise, you're putting on somebody else's eye. So some of these things are places that if you just did a little bit, it might open up some opportunities for you to really start making this even more dynamic. So You want to look at the arcs. If you have to reconstruct something, make sure it's just carefully done so you don't damage your paper. And this should be over there, and I can't really do that here in class. So if this was over there, though, let's just see how much it would be. And the reason you know is because, again, this comes down maybe farther than the mouth, and yours, see, it's still on that side of that alignment, for the most part. So we would have needed to have, this part become the eye over here. And I know that looks pretty bad when I'm doing something like that, but I'm just trying to illustrate a point again so that you can get the idea. And look at these strong angles. This isn't curved this way. It's curved this way and probably over just a little bit further. Because again, you can see what is lining up with that. Well, that was pretty close. But, and then look for shapes. This is going to be, let's put this philtrum like that, and let's go ahead and put the high point of that little Cupid's bow lip and opening. Make sure that your opening is the same shape with a clean edge so it can go inside the mouth. And then it just comes back here. Let's narrow this down so it doesn't get way over here. And you have an opportunity to add some of the curves and angles that will really change the dynamics of this. Okay, so on this coming down, I think that, let's see, let's get a little bit more idea. Look at how short this is and look at how long that is. So let's see what happened. That one is not exactly, see what happened? Your earlobe is way up here. So those are why you want to just constantly just take a moment and see if something lines up. And you'll start getting more and more, oh, wow, I'm doing the same thing I did before. And so you want to be able to come down here and really have an accurate idea of where that is. And it changes the structure of the face. Every time there's something a little bit off, it distorts something and everything has to compensate for it. So that's one reason why I really am a stickler for making sure you have a chance to just start seeing and looking. And I think that this is probably a little bit longer here. And goes down with the lowest point over here. So that we can have maybe a little better angle on this, because this starts flattening out. Look at how this is going, quite, in comparison, quite flat. When this is really quite long, comes all the way over here and down. So you can see if you can correct a few things as you go, you're going to have the opportunity to have everything, corresponding to those anchor points, instead of having something become a compensation. A compensation in my mind would be that I have to reach over there, so I'm going to have to change the angle. I'm going to have to change the curve, or because I have a different curve, now I have to reach over and meet that place in a different way. So that's why the straight edge and divider method, if you're using that pivot point, and establishing where the horizontal and the vertical lines are, you can go ahead and do that initially, putting that on the paper and on your reference and duplicating it on your paper. Go back and look at accurate drawing accurately every time. And also, I usually try, and that's why, to start you over again each and every time we start a project. So on a few of those things, I hope you can see how this would start changing and making it something that is going to be just the anchor point to your drawing. And And so some of this is going to come down a little further too, and it's going to change a tremendous amount. So I don't know what you can change, and maybe you don't want to. You might want to just learn from this and start over, because I think this face is a little bit longer because the chin was short, and maybe not quite as wide because you had to reach way over here to the ear, and it wasn't quite. So you see, I'm saying those things just to get you to stop and think. There's got to be something that is going to give me a clue as to where I need to go to meet that precise point. Okay. And Sandy, I just thank you. I've wanted to go ahead and help you, and look forward to the opportunity. Maybe I can do more for you, because I think that's the main thing you're struggling with, is to have that initial layout. And I want you to know too, I teach that straight edge and divider method, and I want you to try, because it'll still continue to show you where your important parts are, verifying things, and you start looking for those angles, looking for that shape, and I want to keep you trying it, even though you may have to go back and trace something, or use the grid method, or a projector, or something, and there's opportunities for you to be able to go back and forth, as long as it doesn't confuse you. But if you try this, I think in the long run it's going to work. This is a lot. This is a lot rounder. So what is causing that? I don't know. I think we'll look at right off the bat. Look at how narrow that is, and this is wider. So maybe it could have come over here a little bit more, but maybe things are crowding it over there where, it seems like that's the logical place to put it. And then we want to look and see, where is the high place? And again, I'm not going to be able to correct all the things, on here, but I want you to stop and think about it. Not just put an eyebrow on, but look at the angle. It's a little bit higher here. And there's, areas where it isn't just solid. And also, you have places where, look for the high point of an arc. Look for that high point. And so it will add a different tilt to your eye. Let's come up here. And so that gives you more of an eye to work with right there. And it gives us the right trajectory of this eye, so that we can maintain a certain look and attitude and personality. And where is that high point? Looks like it's right about here. Yeah, right about in line with the iris there. And then how far does it come back, and at what angle? Okay, and then we have the temples, which are going to be very, very soft, open, loose, but very important, because it changes, if you're not careful, the angles and the roundness and all those things. So when I'm looking at an arc and I'm looking for the highest point, where is that going to be on the eye? I also want to look at what's below. And so I want to be able to have that come down to, let's see, about right there. But the mouth may need to be worked on too. So, but this just changes, because remember, you always have to go out and meet something, and you want to be going at the right angle to do that. So, this is Gail, and I didn't read Gail. Any suggestions? Gratefully accepted. Thanks, Daryl. Okay, that's pretty intense. Okay, let's go up here and get this arced a little bit more. And again, this is rough, not having a chance to analyze it, and you just go ahead and start drawing. But I'm just trying to point out things you can look for. They won't all be corrected here, but things you can look for. And also, look, it's already changing that focus on the viewer. The person that's looking at him, he's looking at him more and more already. Now, I know there's a highlight in here, but normally that pupil is in the middle and it is modified. But then where is the main? Let's see, this goes this way, and that goes that. Let's put this mouth just a little bit over. Round it a little bit that way. And then this shape in here. There's some shapes that are just more important than others, and that opening in there, I think, is very important. And that lip needs to be full. So let's see if we go. I think this very close. Probably just got a couple things skewed, and then as you put more value in them, they become more noticeable. And all these boys, even though there might be things that you would change, and you're thinking, oh no, I just can't get this. You are, and every mistake or every time you see something that you want to improve, you have the opportunity next time. And it's really fun to see the progress. Let's see, where is that? Oh, it's not that far over. So it looks like this was really maybe a little bit different here. That nostril. And I think this was a little bit over that way too. But needless to say, we're having an opportunity to correct, some of these angles here that are many that are almost just the same. That I think you should have a little more random, have a little bit more open, not make all your circles going this way, but some of them are going this way, and you want to find that happy medium between something that's more accurate and representing him, and yet not just like a stencil, just everything's the same. And that's where you can get into trouble when you get into patternistic things, because you just keep doing the same thing that seemed to work on a couple lines and just continue making a repetitious repeating of that stroke or that. Okay, let's come up here. Boy, this looks crude when I'm doing it on here, but if you look at the video, you'll see I think I probably approached it very similar. And this is breaking it up quite a bit. So you can use your divider and leave some open as you get out towards the edges, so that you can have that opportunity to look through, so it looks natural. And look at how much darker this is, and how close it is to the temple. And the value you put in there is going to have a lot to do with the shape and everything. And so this looks like it goes off that way, and then there's some hair coming down over it. So that just, changes that as well. Here's your little earlobe, and you can come over just like I did before and look and see if one is going to be lower than the other. And anyway, a lot of fun. You can start seeing things happen. You may see some things that you would want to incorporate in your drawing now, just because I'm pointing some of them out crudely, but still pointing them out, and allowing you to start feeling this boy. You've already, like I said, have a change in his trajectory on his eyes, because we wanted to try and make him look at us. And maybe this is curved this way. It looks like it is. And so we want to have this come up where where he's going into his shirt, and it comes down a little bit, but it changes. The whole, proportion, the anatomy and everything of this little boy. Okay. Well, Gail, I hope that helps you a little bit. Just some things to think about. And you can take your measurement, from something substantial up to the top in your drawing, find something that's an equivalent so you know how high to come up. Maybe this is an opportunity for you to change one of those curls and show, some little variance that gives them some personality and stops them from just being a colored in area. And I think you've done some things very, very well. and you're on your way, and I hope you will continue to make an effort to conquer some of these things. So, okay, let's go to the next one. That was Gail. And Rianne, let's go ahead. I got to get a couple things off of here. And remember, Gail didn't have much to say. She says any suggestions would be helpful. Okay, so now we have a face that's really, had that happen where maybe there's a few anchor points and things like that that get it going in a different direction. Let's see what she said. She says, you've failed at the hair, as you can see. I failed at the hair. I wish I could have captured that sense of wonderment instead of him looking a bit puzzled. Well, he could have a puzzled look. You can have a different one. And some of us have a puzzled look on ours too. I only rough sketched his shirt. I used a proportional divider for exact scale of his face, and I find it quite helpful. I enjoyed this project and would love drawing more portraits. Thank you, Daryl. Sincerely, Rianne. Now, I think that even though you may have used your proportional divider, I think there's some things that are possibly influencing your drawing that maybe if you one day can get away from that, or else be aware of other things in your drawing that you can work on, then you're going to end up with something that doesn't have these lined right up underneath here. It's actually probably a little bit more like so. And so when everything gets shifted over, again, everything has to come and meet those things. And so if you look at not just putting an eyebrow on there, but help by putting that little curve, and maybe it drops down. And where is the part that is lined up, the high point of an arc or whatever it happens to be, and look at the corners. That's one reason why I like to go ahead and start my drawing with the corners established, with that bearing line going through from one corner to the other. And where is the high point? You see how this has got pretty flat here. So the high point again is probably more in here. And so he doesn't have a sleepy eye. Okay. And then I don't think this comes down. There's something sticky on there. I don't think this comes down quite as much. So maybe some of these places are areas that can change that severe arc and come up with something that's going to be a little bit more so it doesn't get so heavy. There's quite a bit difference here. And again, I can't take the eye and put it over a little bit, but that's one thing that you can try to do, is look at how it aligns up with something else. So here's the corner of the mouth on your drawing, where it was. I changed it already. And then here's the one on here. And you can see that would, well, I maybe don't have them exactly. Anyway, you can go ahead and come out of this with a different arc, and the corner's in a different place. But that means you would shove that, or move that iris over, because as you look at this, you can see how far over to the left the eye is. And that can easily be compensated if you just remember to look at a few things as you're constructing it. So the proportional divider needs to be used in the placement of things, not just the shape. And if you look at this, you have a pretty severe angle here. And let's see, I have to be able to see it. Look at this right here. That angle is in there. and it doesn't really show in here. So I think that there's so much to try to help with here that on any of these drawings. Mine too. I would just love to have a session where you all show me where I need to go, where I've been, and where do you think you'd like to send me. Okay, but see how close this is, and I think we need more of the backlighting of the neck, and maybe there's a little bit more of a curve in here, and this isn't quite so dark. And then it comes down into, that lower point of the chin. And we need a little more length to the chin. If you put a round chin on this boy at his angle, it just changes an awful lot. And so then when you come over in here, when you have this part maybe a little more accurate here, then you have the opportunity to come in and create that inner part. And you have an opportunity to control, where this is way over to the right, it is really maybe the center is over in here. And again, I hate this because I have to put such dark and such light colors over stuff, and I can't change it. So the opening of the mouth is a little bit smaller. And it's over this way a little bit more. And if I keep going over this way, see, this doesn't come anywhere close to the middle of the iris, but you were getting over there. And so we have, that mouth is not on that side. Probably not explaining it right. If I left everything the way it was, this would start looking like maybe I was turning it like this and maybe pulling a corner over here. So let's go ahead and get this part off the face. Wish I had something more accurate. And we don't have this so dark and turn that direction. It's more like this. Comes out very softly, but it's a different angle. So then when you have these arcs ready, then you can go ahead and put those eyelashes on there to bring everything together and have something that's more of a unit. Even though I've done a little bit to this eye, it's still a long ways away from this flared nostril. So the mouth and the nose and all those things could have helped if you had found some of those anchor points to begin with. And I'm excited about what you're doing with this. I just want to sit by you and be able to just point out some things. Oh, don't miss that. That is going to be really important later. Don't miss that. And watch how that's going to go ahead and turn into that and join it. So you have some areas in here that just maybe need to be opened up. And you have to think about, the height of the forehead, and it's nice to establish that, earlier on. And you have a rounder cheek maybe right here. I have one more of these to do. Some of these critiques are going to be very quick too. So let's come up here. Look at how we have more of a neck here. This comes up all the way up to there. So we see that part at a different angle. And so it changes the shape of a lot of things, because when you have something disappear behind an edge, you anticipate by the curve and the angle and everything, you anticipate where it's going to come back out at. And so this even goes up a little bit. And anyway, just goes on and on. There is room for a little adjustment here. Let me see if I can get a little bit of that in there. but we're making his face a little rounder, and that might not be what we want to do either. So there you go. Anyway, even as general, or as curved as it is, maybe you can start seeing some new possibilities. I always like to make almost a corner in my mind here. So this right here, maybe it comes like so, and it's just generally, and then this comes down like so, and it starts changing the angles on the face. There are several things that need to be moved around, so it's not like I'm going to correct it each time I show you something on this drawing. But this became very solid, and so if you have everything in the right place, then you can go ahead and show some of that contrast that helps us be able to show something going back, and we can pull something forward like these. These are being pulled forward. And all right, anyway, I'm trying to think of what else I could do that it's quick enough and would help you, but I think this is probably about it. This probably needed to come over a ways, and you can see even that little adjustment there made a difference. But don't go too dark, too quick, so you can make your changes. So what it's often about is making sure you don't commit yourself and go overboard, but you can always make something darker later and help yourself make those adjustments that might not have been noticed to begin with, but they are now. Nancy says, here's my little boy. This was a fun project. Hope you like him. It was a fun project. Just wonderful. First thing, what do you see? I see maybe we may need more height up here. Let's just look at this. Oh, let's go from something that's substantial and anchored here. Let's see if we can find an equivalent. Well, over from the ear, it's general, but still, maybe that wide. And then we'll go up here. But you can see, this is why I can see these things pretty easy. You generally need about the height of the paper to create the height for his hair. And when you put that on there, it looks odd because it doesn't have everything corresponding to it. And that's one reason why you want to try to establish some of these things before you start, so you can always have that purpose for it being there. You can have it pointing in the right direction. You can have all kinds of things that are going to be an advantage if you make some of those points and don't guess too much. Once you make the points, then you can go ahead and free up. But you still want to have the height of the hair and the proper width of the, to his hair, and then don't overcommit until you're happy that you've gone through your checklist and picked those places. Now over here, it looks like there's kind of a tired eye here because that white doesn't go up high enough. So that white, again, this is going to be crude. So, but look at how just lifting that a little bit made a huge difference. And maybe take a little bit off here, even though the shading idea and everything else is pretty good. We can still take the darker areas and help them compensate as well. This just suddenly started changing a lot. This is quite high if you were to look at the lobes, and I like to be able to help you think about these things because it's real easy. You can tell that often we think pretty much the same. We see things often that it's just common for people to see things a certain way, distorted a certain way, whatever it happens to be. So we want to have the two lobes, and we want to have the two lobes, same trajectory. So a little more to the side of the face. And here is our lobe. Now, obviously, your hair would probably be just a little different if you had known that. And it looks like, even though this is the low point, it looks like maybe this is a little bit thick. So I would go ahead and come from a substantial point again and see where should that be. And give yourself an opportunity to get those proportions down. And it looks like there's a lot of good things going on here. But if you had a little more, it looks like it's possible that this could have maybe been up a little higher and this maybe a little bit lower. So you have all these tilts. I like to establish these as I'm drawing a person at the very early stages and give myself the opportunity to see the perspective of the face. So these are all things that would do that for you. And also the earlobes and things like that. But you have perspective to a face even when you don't really realize it, because everything that's coming this way, it should be in reality getting a little smaller. And then you'll notice that you have much more space over here, because the middle of the face is conforming to, the middle of the nose and the curvature, and it goes up like so. It doesn't come right straight down the middle, because we have his face turned one way or the other. But I think this has got a lot of good potential, even though I think structurally it would be nice to be able to establish some of those things I'm talking about. And this right here, for any of you, it's a temple that's going up. And then this becomes the hair coming out of it, but you want to be able to see the temple through that hair. And then try to come up with your delicate, stroke, so that you can show that feathered side that feathers in and coming out of your temples. And all right. So then you have your alignments. Just check them out. Oh, look at that. It's pretty good. This might need to come a little bit more this way. I don't know. And then we need a full lip. So this is probably going to have a trajectory that almost comes down just a little bit. For that bottom lip to be thicker on that side than it is on this side. And but I think there's some good things happening with a few just things to think about. Where's the high point again of the eye? Over here or over here? Just that little bit can make a huge difference. And it changes the weight, the trajectory, and all those things that can change, the attitude, the physical, structure, and all that. All right. Anyway, okay. So thank you very much, Nancy. Really enjoy seeing your work, as I do all of your work. I love people that are able to go ahead and start, even though they may not think they have that much ability yet. It takes time. And as I point these things out and you experience your own, it helps you to be able to start seeing a consistency on the way things are. So get rid of the boy. Oh, I enjoyed that boy. I know you all did too. It was so much fun seeing everybody's rendition. And okay, so now let's look at Kathy H. I want to say your last name because we all know who you are. Gone through 6. Yep. Okay, now, Kathy, you said that you hope to finish for a contest. Not sure I have the eyes correct because they seem to bulge from the eye socket so much. So I think it is hard to see them in here. Let me go ahead and pull this out and just look at the drawing. It is hard to see, though, and so you need to really take advantage of your value. I think that there's probably maybe a little less here, but this may come down this way just a little bit. And I think that this isn't going to show it as round. It actually probably comes a little bit like that. I'm not going to be accurate because I don't have the opportunity to start from the beginning. So, but now we have some angles that we can start counting on. And you see this angle. Let me come over here. Yeah, we'll get through as many of these as we can. Oh, Kathy. I needed to take your name off there. I had that on for me. Sorry to expose all your identity. Okay. So there's some things that I think are just paramount. I want to look for places I can go past. So I like this head because maybe I can go ahead and use it to show the form and also what's maybe past it, or what is the head and what is the hair coming out. And as I'm looking at some of these things, I want to be able to have that opportunity to come and again show a consistency. I don't want to outline this, but I want to be able to just show you that that value comes down and it stops. And this value comes down and it stops. If nothing else, you can create this and then have that buffer zone so you can pull out of it and not have to show that it's a solid color. Let's see what else we can do here. It looks like he has more of a lip. I wouldn't put this on his lip. That's, his, that the part of the lip that's in the mouth, but instead make sure that I'm creating an edge so that I can go into the mouth and have it be a little bit darker as it goes up to that place where it goes back. Let's see, what else can we do here? Let's come up with another edge. It looks like this is, I don't know what the shape is, but you can maybe see it better in your reference. I don't know. And I think that, let's say, it looks like, yeah, there is a highlight there, but I want to get the structure first too. It looks like maybe this is the high point. And then we have the opportunity to push this back into the recess of the ear. And the same thing over here. These are probably things that you would have done, but I want to be able to come in here and push this back into that recess of the ear. So that's helping me with my shape a little bit. And I don't know, what is this, like baby horns or something? I probably should have looked at a giraffe quick. But anyway, then make sure that this lip is actually creating some shading here. And we have that shading here to show that there's contour and all that. And again, these are crude strokes, Kathy, so you're probably used to me by now. And where's the center? Let's see. Oh, here's a part that goes past. Okay, so I want to know where those lips are, or the bottom jaw. Let's see. And then here's the lips. I don't want to outline them. I'd like them to, just become diffused enough they just come in with a softer edge into what is obviously going up into his mouth or underneath this lip. But see, we can still have quite a bit more dimension, I think, by making sure we're taking a good look at that lip. and having our clean edge here, because it's what's being blocked from our view by the upper lip. And then look at angles like this. This might be getting up a little bit high. Look at this angle here. So then that would correspond with what you see over here. And maybe by seeing what's over here, it might help you decide, well, okay, maybe we have something blocking just a little bit, so we don't have a point over here on this one. And then this is all shaded by whatever this is on top, their little headdress. Little hairy tuft. Because he isn't old enough to have horns or something. Do they all have horns? That's a dumb question to ask right now, isn't it? And then if you did have anything on the background, then you have that opportunity to create that you don't have to do the whole thing, but create that little bit of a value that helps you hold that edge. Let's come up here and do this over here. It's going inside that here. But here's the clean edge, and here's the soft part that's, inside there. But we want to create depth everywhere you can. Make sure that they're in the places that are going to give you the right, anatomy and proportion. I think that's a little bit different angle, so I'm going to come out here and create that a little bit more. So then you have all these other places that help you maintain an edge. It looks like this goes down, and here is this part of the lip or jaws coming down. I guess it's just this bottom jaw, huh? But look at how it helps us start getting a overall shape. And you want to keep what's supposed to be soft and undefined. Everything that goes past something is going to have a clean edge. Same principles. But sometimes they're covered with things, and you know that clean edge is in there, and you can have a better idea of the form and everything. But I would not put a line around some of these. In fact, you want to be able to have a hairy edge. So I would take away some of these more defined places. Now, I may not have this in the right place. I'm just trying to think of how I can help you with this. So you can have a hairy edge, which would help be compatible with your little giraffe here. Giraffes are so cool. Well, all animals are cool as far as I'm concerned. But look at what happens when we just start getting in some basic shapes and whatever. I would try to do something a little different than just putting up this hard-edged thing, and then you notice that it gets darker when it comes around here because it's coming to where there's less light. Oh, it looks like that goes down a little further too. So I would check this out. Maybe this isn't in the right place. Maybe it's because of me. I can't even remember what I did. Where about on this eye does this become a little bit better defined? There's nothing that bright in there except your highlights for your eye. And then this looks like, even though there's these grooves, it looks like there is an opportunity to go across them to create that angle in there. A little more of a deep recession as it comes down and over. And then maybe some of this isn't quite so much. A little more of the highlighter. It's amazing what you can do with some subtle values. Sometimes you can have things just barely even show up. So anyway, maybe a few things to think about there, Kathy. And I want to continue. I think I'll just keep continuing to draw on yours after class. That happens so often. You just fall in love with all these little drawings, and man. Yep, pretty cool. Just want to make sure you keep this a little bit at a perspective. It's not looking directly at you, so you don't have just round irises. And anyway, thank you for sending that in, Kathy. Let's put this over here. Okay, now here is Cyrus. I don't know if that's who did the drawing or that's this. The reason I wanted to bring this in here, it is pretty much, you kind of, I think, identified with Mr. Mulligan. But the problem is you're combining two different mediums. And I try to keep my graphite from becoming too dark, too vivid, especially if I have one transcending into the other. So you can see where you have something that's a lot different. It's carbon. Is that what it was? Yeah, carbon. And you said, well, you like the compatibility between carbon and pencil better than charcoal and pencil. And it's right. Some of them don't go over the top of another one or whatever. But I find that when I go too dark, I no longer have that ability to come in and have a transition, have something that's going to give me an integration, having something that's going to show what's past something. So, let's just take the eyes here. I want to have something a little darker as it goes underneath that lid and then come down. Look at what that did to that already and giving it all that depth. It may not be totally accurate in just the right place, but still, you have the opportunity to start getting some depth. And so if I am careful, I can use my 4B pencil as, it could be another one, but my 4B pencil is plenty dark, and I can always regulate how much I put on there, how hard I'm pressing on the paper, so that I can utilize it with a number of values, actually, and not have it become too much. Some of this is becoming quite a bit. I'm not going to go up here where I see all this shading here, but you might be able to show where the head is going into the cap by now creating that edge and having the shadow part come down. Softer, softer, softer. I know there's detail in the forehead, but still, I want to be able to show dimension. And I can't do that when everything gets so dark that I can no longer come in and show this progression into the dark under the hat. There's much more dimension here than it is in something defined where I don't really know where that edge is. But if I am just using my graphite, I have all kinds of opportunities to integrate this to create the contrast that shows that there is something up underneath there, but that I don't have to have it that vivid. And so I am wondering, I don't know how you accomplish this, but it might be that you can break it up a little bit by going down in between something and having that integration, having the black outfit show in between by breaking up that edge a little bit, and not have something that is almost looking like it's cut out. I would try, that was almost like a goal, I would try to keep it from looking like it's just cut out. And see, this is shiny. That's a shame, because I know that's a lot of reasons why people like to use the darker pencils, and maybe even go to carbon or something like that, because up underneath here I want this to be darker, and yet this has a very dark, a very reflective quality about it, and I don't really like that either. So, but here we are, something that's going underneath the fingers just a little bit more, and I like the versatility I get with my graphite, because I can use different grades of pencils, and I can also use different pressures. I can layer. I can do all kinds of things to create a little bit more, but I don't want to press too hard. I want to let my pencils work for me. And it's so hard, just like I'm to a place right here on yours that I don't really have all the options. And so there are still places, though, where I can get a little darker and have a softer edge as it comes into that contour or out of that contour and into the light. This right here, this is almost like there's a form here, and I just want the edge. That's what I would want. Just have the edge be where it's darker up there, and allow some of this to be. What was that? No, that's his nostril. But if you're careful of where you put your values, you're going to have an opportunity to really make this face, even though you've worked it, into some of these, almost difficult places. You can come back in maybe and take just a little bit, not white, but take just a little bit to break that up, so it doesn't just become almost like a cutout. And again, don't use your Prismacolor. It would just not be good for this at all. So, but I like to break up that edge, making sure that I know that this is getting darker and not being reflective like. And then look at this. This is another thing. Look at how this goes up here. You can give a whole nother attitude, with his form, by making sure that this doesn't just keep going and you've eliminated that. Maybe that's an important part of his structure. So I just really like to have the opportunity to show the depth and gradually work my way into that. So at the very last, I can make this pop. And okay. Kind of hard. Again, I just took a chance just to make my point. I like to have more control than just going with a very, very dark pencil, and especially when it's not even covering everything. It's in a place that really shows either too dark, or you can only get it so dark. And I can't get equal to this, but I could give the impression that this is dark by having built it up with my graphite gradually and not going that dark. It's what everything contrasts with that makes it successful. So you only know how dark or how light something is by what it's next to, what it is contrasting with, in most cases. So somehow to get contour into this hat instead of having it become almost the same all the way across, because your dark is already on there and you couldn't quite get it dark enough. So So anyway, I hope that helps a little bit. That's all I wanted to do, is just mention the difficulty I have always had with carbon. I do a lot of pen and ink, or have over the years. And that's a whole nother thing that you have to be able to deal with, because you only have one color. So you work with cross-hatching. And how far apart a white line or a scratch mark is will give you the idea of whether you're lighter or darker in those areas, whether you have contour and all that kind of stuff. So here's a great little baby. Let's see, Lana. Hi, Daryl. The initial outline of this drawing was completed using a projected image, but the remainder was used by the 5-pencil method. Well, it doesn't make any difference. You could project something, you could do all kinds of things to get things started, and still use the 5-pencil method as far as applying the pencil, to be able to look for the details and to be able to draw them better and better all the time. So that's not necessarily a huge problem. In fact, if you're not comfortable with doing the layout and everything else, in the meantime, I'd like you to keep trying. But in the meantime, I've said, go ahead and project this or trace it or whatever it is, so you can have a drawing that you can work on, and then continue trying to bring yourself around so you can do things more in a more free-handed way. There's a few things that could be. Look at this angle here. It probably goes up in a little bit more like so. I don't know what's over here. It's washed out. But I know that there are places where knuckles may have maybe a little bit more and a little bit softer, because these are rounded areas. They're not just, a hard edge something or other showing a nice soft light. But you want to make sure that these are indicating these are round little fat fingers, whatever you want to call them. So I think, and again, this is pretty harsh here, right straight across. So I think it's better to diffuse that and to create a little bit more highlight so that we can show our light direction, and that it's lighter on one side than it is on the other. This helps us have the contour, the rounded parts of his hand, and it gives you that much more dimension, that much more pop. There are things in here too that I think it's good to go ahead and look at and see, what am I dealing with here, because this isn't a stripe on a shirt, and you might get the idea that it is because you see all of this. But instead, there's places where he goes into his shirt, and so it comes out softly. But this is a clean edge, and it comes out of that shirt, his little neck. And so it's the same thing on this. This isn't a stripe. It's actually a place where this is a sleeve, and this is the back of it might be just a shadow coming out using a soft edge. But I want him going into that sleeve. I don't want the sleeve to be useless and make it into a stripe on his little sweater. Oh, what did I do that for? Oh, shoot. Oh, well, we could put that lighted edge there. And then if you can try to keep from just using an outline, this is also going into his sleeve. So you want to, it's thin, but you want to be able to come out lighter on that part, so it's casting a shadow. You want to know where it's blocked from our view, and that needs to be clean. But then it comes out into the light, and it just changes everything. I'm going to go ahead and just, in fact, take a little bit of this off, because at the top, there's just more light. So I have a chance to duplicate or, whatever. Okay, here's a few places, and I'm not going to make them totally accurate. But anyway, here's that thing again where you go in and you can't see behind the fingers, and it's light. It's dark. goes to where there's less light, especially with the light coming like this. So then, to make this look like it's really light, even though they're formed pretty well, I want to be able to have a softer edge on this one than I do on this. If you're going behind something, you can't see it anymore. It has to be a clean edge in there somewhere. That's my rule, and I'm sticking to it. So when you have something out here again, just diffusing the edge ever so slightly helps you realize light direction. Everything's going to where it gets darker. And so in here you might be able to come up with a little bit more contrast as well. So there's a place where it's deeper, that range of value again, and going this is coming out over the top, but it's lighter on that side and it is darker on that side, and it increases your depth instead of just having dark and light. And it's not a criticism of your work. I think this is a wonderful subject, and I think you've done a very nice job, but this might help you improve. So when you have this over here, this is going to be in the area that isn't going to get any light, and maybe this helps describe the rest of it a little bit better. So anyway, wanted to be able to just point that out, and when this comes over, it gets darker. Comes over, it gets darker, and then it goes lighter, 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 lighter that way. But you can see how you can contour something even more, or at least make sure that everybody understands what you're drawing, if you will go ahead and show those contour values. So anyway, Lana, I think this is a wonderful picture. This is one that I wish I could continue working on, just like I said before. But it doesn't mean that you have to hold the edge. You could put a value back here, and you could also just get rid of that. And it's amazing what's left in other areas helps you really communicate this in a very special way. This should be a little bit more diffused. It's on a contoured surface, and it gets a little darker and a little darker as it goes back. So anyway, a great opportunity for you to practice. All over this are opportunities like that. I think that this is a little arced a little bit more. Again, it's usually to one side or the other, but it's a little higher, taking care of that fold. Oh. So anyway, very nice. Love it. Let's go ahead and go on with another one here. And this one is by Becky. Get my notes out here again. I think this is her younger daughter. She's got two pictures she sent in, and has a lot more opportunity for contrast. But this is a little bit to trying to get her face dark enough in here so I could have some contour dimension. It made everything else pretty much solid black, but you don't have to do that. And it looks like you're following the principles that I talk about all the time, and where it goes to where there's the least light, it's a wonderful opportunity to realize you have these options even if you can't see it in your drawing, because these places are the places that it's going to go create more dimension. Because as I come out here, and excuse me for drawing this right here, but I think, regardless of the color, I think it's better to have the dark on that side, and because it's past this surface here. And then this could also probably be darker when it gets right down to the edge. And then look at this. This is something that so often passes us by. This is dimension that we don't think about all the time. And this t-shirt has dimension. And so it isn't the same plane as this. When you have the t-shirt over it, it's like so. And then this fades away. You see this? This isn't the same plane as his arm. And it's real easy to miss that. And so you can either have something almost like it's painted on, or, just stuck. And it's so easy to go ahead and create that dimension. That t-shirt is wrapped around his body. So, and then as we go down in a place like this, we can add this a little darker again. Now I'm going by the value that's on there already. But anyway, as this got darker when it goes up here, because it's going around her body, it looks like maybe some of the main brightness is on this side of her arm. And if I'd printed it any darker, I wouldn't be able to see much. But his head is blocking the view of this. So we want to have this be dark enough that we can actually put a little value in here and come back. There's going to be some reflective qualities and things like that too. But we want to make sure that when we're dealing with something curved, we can accentuate that. And because she's got a rounded arm, then maybe this is an edge. You have to decide that. Or it is just going to be rounded up because of the light as it goes up there. I think this is very nice, though. It's a great shot and a nice pose. And it looks like, yes, there is shadow on this side. So I would be getting lighter, lighter, lighter out here and not have to be too much, but I can make this as dimensional as I want. Or I can go ahead and keep it flat. I just love adding that depth, contour, roundness, whatever you want to call it, by utilizing light. So that's contrast, clean edges, and all those kinds of things that are going to add that much more to your drawing. Anyway, it looks like maybe this could be a little bit higher. It's probably the white pencil that would probably be, in this case, able to give that added dimension. Yeah, it just seems like it should have been a little bit more body here, but so that's why I'm taking the liberty to put some out there. Yeah. And then on here, this is his shiny or brighter place, because you want everybody to know he's got a rounded head. And I know you were after hair. Let's see what you said here. Hi, Mr. Tank. I've been working on improving my drawing of hair. Okay, but I want this. I want some of the things I've accentuated here, so that now my hair becomes even more effective. Let's go down deeper in there. But it doesn't have to be all the way along. Look at, these are places I want to go past and into closer to his scalp, going past the detail that I have for his shorter hairs out here. And then I don't want to do it all the way across, because then I'm going to flatten everything out again. Everything that's the same value will become flat. So we have all kinds of opportunities. You don't have to make this look scary by each one of these things becoming a place where there is, a V. But if you continue with some of the lines, you can go ahead and create that edge that's creating a shadow on this. A shadow, a place that it disappears, and come up with more and more dimension, and giving you the opportunity to be able to see more opportunities for, curve, character, all those things that we can see in the rest of his face. That's her boyfriend. That's Becky's youngest daughter, I guess. Didn't read the rest of the thing. I keep doing that, huh? I'm sending a drawing of my son, and we'll get to that, and one of my daughter and her boyfriend. I know that hair can make a tremendous difference if I can get it right. Thank you so very much for sharing your expertise with those of us who love to draw, who also love to draw. So, yeah, I'm getting this whittled right down to nothing, huh? And so if you need to have that contrasting, well, here's an opportunity on one side. I just don't want it to be a flat place. So I want to use my graphite pencils. I won't be using this on it. But anyway, we want to be able to have that contrast. Contrast is what gives us the opportunity to demonstrate depth, contour, dimension, and all those things. So anyway, I hope that helped you a little bit, Becky, for that one. You've got another one, so we'll look at that one too. Here's your son. Get my notes out here. And here's that little longer hair, but still light hair, kind of like mine. And I think you've done a very nice job. I think that you could stand a little more contrast. I see you've signed this off. And that being dark, it's the darkest thing in the whole entire drawing. So I probably would recommend that you don't get something too bright unless you just have to make sure everybody knows who did this drawing. So I want to be a little bit darker at the top where there's less light. I want to be able to show that this goes into a darker side of that contour, and that this continues on, as an awful lot of people do. This continues on a little bit darker that way and not just an arc. Okay, that this isn't just a line. It's just so easy to do some of these things, so that's why I'm pointing them out. Don't do just a line, have it coming back out into the light again. And then you can have a dental arch. So this very well is where the teeth are, that's fine. But I would stay pretty light, but make sure that you have them getting just a little darker as they go back into his mouth. You see that? There's nothing that bright there. And then his gum underneath of his lip. There's just so many fun things to do that give this even more dimension. And look, I'm doing that with this terribly blunt pencil, but I have an edge. And then I can go ahead and shade his teeth down. But I want an edge to separate his lip from his teeth. I want to be able to go into his mouth, so that's why we would have a clean edge here too, as you've already done. And then naturally that's a little bit darker, and we need something to separate it from his whiskers. So, same thing. I don't care whether it's little strands of hair or whatever it is, it's still going to have at least some of a clean edge. Otherwise, this is just going to snuggle right up into his mustache and become a part of it. And we want to be able to have some separation so you can have dimension. If things are soft, separating two dimensions, they will become the same dimension. They'll just become joined. Okay, so when we come over here, we want to be able to show, well, I don't want to give them a cavity, but anyway, we want to be able to show that that comes down from that. Okay, so now he wouldn't have that bright of teeth because this is shading this. You can see where the light starts on the edge of his lip or the bottom of his teeth. You know, that So we would come down here and show the top edge of his lip. That's the clean edge. And I know that isn't defined very well, but anyway, and then we come down here with his whiskers on here again, and now we have it a little bit darker here because it goes into this deeper place. And those are, I think, probably things that you could really benefit from and have the opportunity to have some practice, more dimension, and whatever to your son. Yep. Okay, this looks like it's arced a little bit different. And then there's a little broader space, or a little more space where it's shaded underneath. There's nothing that bright here. It could be my printing. Excuse me if it is, but at least it gives me something to tell you about. Very general drawing here, just doing some sketchy stuff just to get some value here and there. And so this is where that major shadow part is. So maybe you don't have to have anything that dark. I think that's a nice job. I'm just accentuating it. Here's maybe a place for a little bit more value on his ear. Maybe going past, an opportunity for you to make sure that clean edge is there. And an opportunity for him to go into or be coming out of his clothes there. More of that dimensional. Yeah, it looks like this is a hard edge shadow. It could be him going into his clothes. But let's just see. We can put this on here. Yeah, let's go ahead and just pretend he's going into his shirt. And then if I have that dark, it's a dark shirt, then I can have this coming out softly because he's coming into the light as he comes out of his shirt. So we have the opportunity to create any depth you want by taking that. And we don't have to put it in just because we see it in fact, that's too much probably. Yeah. So excuse me for my choice in just demonstrating this. Yeah. And then it's the same thing here. It's a clean edge. You don't have to get that carried away. Use a different value. But come out here with a contrast in texture and light so that you can get that dimensional goatee. Okay. Boy, it's really interesting to loosen up with a 4B pencil, just to try and help you see a few things you might be able to do when you're trying to do it quickly and everything with a darker pencil. It's interesting. Okay, so we can have this a little darker underneath that hair. Whatever. This might not be that bright. Doesn't have to be dark, but maybe not that bright. And you can have the opportunity to divide or separate anything you want and not make it too noticeable. Thank you, Becky. Appreciate you letting us borrow your brother. Or it's your son? Yeah, it's your son. All right, one more. Oh, two more. It'll be quick. Here's, there's three more. Andy, what I would do, this is you said I'm sending in my work in progress that I'm doing, have been working on it for a while, would like your opinion and suggestions on the work so far. The awesome picture was taken by my daughter, and this is of her friend's 10-year-old. 10 years old? You gotta be kidding me. Daughter in her costume last Halloween. Thank you for all your help. And so I would just make sure on something like this, what paper you're working on that makes it this grainy. I would try to have some flow to this, and not have anything in here. If it's going to be dark and maybe a little bit foreboding or whatever, I wouldn't have anything that bright, because you have other things that you want to come across as as bright. And so you have a chance to offset it. So I don't know whether maybe it's because this was enlarged from a very small picture, but I would make sure that I have some contrast where this is being some smooth, long strands of hair, and not have it be so grainy. And then when you get that value in here, then you can, maybe shove this back into the darkness, so you don't have these parts where it's just a little bit lighter than it would be in real life. But you have to be able to have some value in the hair to be able to do that. And so then what you do have as white or dark will have the opportunity to appear that way. Not this, but it can be lighter than this. And that grain, that texture, that's why I was wondering, if you are working on a very textured paper, because those white specks take away from the impact, I think, of some of this rest of the drawing. Now, if I want to be able to come out from underneath that hat, I would create, a clean edge. And don't copy me how hard I'm working at this to get that value. It's just a matter of showing again that dimension. So, not too much to be able to say you have more that you're going to be drawing on this, and you said you've been working on it for some time, but just try not to have these lighter strands in all this darkness. Don't make them too light, and yet keep your balance and values, because you still want this to be part of the whole story. And there's nothing that bright up there. So okay, anyway, I need to go ahead and move on if I'm going to get any of this done. I'm just going to make a couple more comments on these other ones. So thank you very much, Andy. I tried to just get the whole stack here. And here is this is Gail. And I think that the problem with this is you don't have the opportunity to pull something forward and push it back. And in something like this, you want to be able to... I'm going the wrong direction, so forgive me. I'm just trying to illustrate value. So you want to be able to pull that jaw and whatever it is forward, so you can have some dimension, and still realize that there's going to be a direction to the hair. But kind of like I was just talking on Andy's Halloween picture there, that you don't want it to become so... You want to make sure that you don't have white coming in this area, or you're going to lose your opportunity to do several things. Okay, so we have, look at this foot. I'm just putting this in it's better for me to show you something, but we want some dimension in here. Here's a tail. Just value to help get that set back where it belongs on the dog, and then it can come forward. I don't know how much you intend to do on this, but I just want you to think about value. Go the right direction for your fur. Let's go ahead and put this underneath here. There's the back of the leg underneath there. But look at how we already start picking out some of these places that will have more depth and dimension, and start giving that dog some real contour and depth. So, okay, I got one more. So just remember that. Very difficult doing a dark dog. So you may have to come in here with some grays and allow for that, and have separation as you go. So here's the last one. This is John Lee. And John has some of the same challenges here. I think that you've done a nice job. He's looking that way. If you don't want him looking that way, then this is the time to go ahead and do something about that. You want to be able to give a reason for his eyes to move over just ever so slightly, if that's the case. And realize that this is going to be on the darker side underneath his eyelid. There is a separation here on the frame of his glasses. It is darker over here and not just equal with that. So even at early stages, you don't have to make it very, very dark, but it would be nice to start establishing that this is in the shadow area of his left eye. This is something that isn't just outlined on both sides, but actually has part of the framework that goes into the shadowed side. And then something that gives you the opportunity to show he's got kind of, I hate to say bangs, but anyway, there is a part that's trimmed here, and it's in the front, and it will help you get some dimension, because you still want to be able to have the opportunity, in my estimation, of that light coming this way, so you have some things that are going to be shaded. And even his round forehead is going to be a little bit darker as it goes that way. His cheek is going to be a little bit darker as it goes that way. So just allow for some of those things, and even though you may want to keep it fair or light and all those things, you might be able to go ahead and really benefit by not having to draw as much as you may think, if that's what you're trying to do, doing a minimalist drawing, but paying attention to what is not getting any light and why. What's not getting any light? Let's come up here and make this the darker part. Not too dark, but moves his face forward. Let's go ahead and come behind this flange of the ear. I don't know where that is. You'll have to figure that out. I don't have time to really get all that accurate here. And so here, this is very nebulous because it's so soft. Let's go ahead and take an edge. It looks like it comes over here quite a ways. Let's go ahead and create that edge. Something that's blocking the light, obviously. Here's the same thing on that side of the... Now, you don't have to get that dark. I'm just, again, trying to illustrate it. And I hope you can see it starting to come forward. And this is shading the base of this, but you don't want to have just a line. You want it to be a range of values, so it comes into the light that's reflecting out here a little bit more. So anyway, I'm glad to see it. I saw it online, obviously, John. I think it's a wonderful drawing, a wonderful subject, a challenge that's, a little different. And I don't know what all this is. I'm sure it isn't him. So I think it's just kind of a odd saturation or whatever it is. Here you have the opportunity to have, again, him coming up out of his shirt. So you have a range of value up there. Try not to have anything just flat. And it doesn't make any difference what value it is. If it's all the same, it is going to appear flat. So let's have him coming out of his shirt and have it a little bit darker there, let's say. You're in control. You can really do a lot with this drawing. And I'm so glad we had the opportunity to just give a little bit on everybody's tonight. And I just say, have fun drawing. And look for those opportunities that are going to make what you actually have on your paper become dynamic and come forward. So anyway, thanks for the privilege of being able to show you. I hope I was able to do enough and you can follow what I was trying to show you, and especially with so many. But I thought it would be okay because there's just a little bit on each one. And all right, I hope you have a great week. Next week, let me show you. Next week we're going to have the flame, and you'll see that there are a number of images on there. There's even a black and white one, I think, available. But you'll have two different. Okay, somebody wants to know whether I'm going to use a straight edge and divider. I got to show you what I'm doing. When I mount these, sometimes it's nice to mount them even if I didn't use it for the layout, because it's so much more durable. I don't have to worry about it curling and, all those different things. But I did a smaller one, so you could have one for a layout. You're welcome to do the layout. And find those major points, all these places that are going to help you give the shape and size and dimension. And I really went and exaggerated this because I just couldn't get it to really give me the value. I wanted to just light the thing up because I wanted to capture this. And this to me is part of the challenge of this drawing, to be able to have this transcend into the dark. I'm not saying I do it all the time. I've probably rarely had a chance to do something quite like this. And so I want an opportunity for us to all see together what we're going to accomplish. And I'll give you those parameters, those ideas about what you can do. We'll experiment a little bit together. And if you only did it in black and white, it would still be a fun drawing. So I just really wanted to, though, find a way to have this transition, because I don't want an outline on this flame. I want it to just glow into the dark and yet still have definition, still have this shape. Yeah. So that's what you'll have to look for online, so you can print them out if you haven't already. And anyway, it'll be fun. I'm looking forward to it. So it's going to be a challenge, like I said. We'll see you next week. Hope you had a good time following this class. Bye-bye.